Okay, so in the last video we have actually like accumulated all the points which is actually needed to motivating ourselves to become a generative AI engineer. Okay, it is just an extension of last video, okay, that we wanted to learn. Let me just give it a lecture too. Okay, so we wanted to like learn about that what is basically the OpenAI. Okay, what is like Hugging Face, right, and all these things, right? So let me just give you a little glimpse about it. Okay, so till now like we have understood about it, what is actually a generative AI, okay, and how it is actually showing a difference between a traditional AI, because in traditional AI we generally do the prediction or classification, right? In generative AI we actually occur to generate something. Okay, either we are generating the text, generating the image, generating the sound, generating the visuals, okay, so many other things, right? Now let's understand about the OpenAI. Okay, that what is basically the OpenAI. So OpenAI is basically a company, right? So it is a well-established company, okay, and they have actually come up with a chatbot interface to the user, which we generally known as ChatGPT. Okay, so ChatGPT is basically developed by the OpenAI. So when I say about the ChatGPT, right? So GPT, what does this GPT is going to tell us about? GPT is basically a generative model. Okay, it is basically used to initially when it came, right? It was generating just a text. Okay, based on the user is asking or prompting something, it is actually generating the text. Now it is actually generating image as well. Okay, well and good image as well, right? You can see a lot more trending posts in a lot of social media that people are actually generating the best images possible. Okay, as the time frame goes, it has actually trained on some set of diversified data, right? So it is basically a generative pre-trained transformer, right? Pre-trained transformer. Okay, so there is a 2-3 model of like generating something. Okay, the first is basically GAN. Okay, generative adversarial network. Okay, it was around developed around 2014. Okay, which is like basically used to develop some set of good image, some noise, some text. Okay, based on it has a generative network, it has a discriminative network. Okay, so we have actually like had a very little glimpse about GAN model. Okay, then when it comes to transformer model, so it is basically like developed in, it is also a generative based model. Okay, so it was actually developed in 2017. Okay, so it is basically also used to generate some set of a good text response. Okay, which is like far more superior than other generative model that has been like developed in the history. Okay, it is actually very inspired from the transformer paper. The paper name is actually attention is all you need. Okay, attention is all you need. Okay, it is very good paper. I will actually walk you through this paper as well. Okay, if I go into the very deep section of generative AI, I will tell you that how you yourself fine tune your own model. Okay, how you yourself like try to generate your own set of transformer based architecture for your own use cases. Okay, but that is for the later part. Okay, this is just that I am actually covering the entire basics and keywords which is actually needed, so that later you won't feel a little isolated from all these things. Okay, so when I say about OpenAI, okay, so if I go here, right, so if I just go here, OpenAI models, right, so you can see that there are a lot more models, right, that OpenAI is basically like fine-tuned it. Okay, or even like they have actually invested so many money in compute just to train their model with diversified data set for different positive outcome. Okay, you can see that it has actually developed GPT-5, GPT-5.2, GPT-5 Nano, GPT-5 4.1, and these many models. When it comes to the image generation model, so they have actually come up with DALL-E model and some of the best model, right? Even like Sora model is basically used for the video generation part, right? Sora 2 Pro is also there. Okay, and like these model is already there in the model repository. Okay, in the platform openai.com, if you go, first let's go to the quick start. Okay, so you will see that there are so many things. Okay, I will tell you about everything. Okay, don't worry about it. I just wanted to tell you that OpenAI is basically a company which has developed a chat interface, a model which we known as GPT, generative pre-trained transformer. Okay, which is like hugely trending. Okay, from the day it has developed. Okay, because it is going to answer a lot more question. It is going to like make our task way easier, right, compared to the progressive history of generative AI we had, right? So yeah, these are the set of model that this company has actually fine-tuned. Fine-tune means weight updation. Weight updation means what? Transfer learning. Transfer learning means what? That it has some set of data. Okay, or maybe like this company has some set of the agreement. Okay, so that's agreement with some of those big companies who has actually shared the data. Okay, and they have actually like trained the big model, okay, with the super big compute just to give the output of the human feedback. Okay, so that just to give output whenever the human is already in the loop. Okay, whenever the human is asking question, okay, it is actually understanding the question, it is actually understanding the context. Who is actually understanding the context? The model. The transformer based generative AI model, the GPT model, is actually understanding our question. Okay, our reasoning, our feeling, our emotion, okay, everything, our code, our image, okay, our voice, So everything it is actually understanding it, and then it is like by its own thinking and by its own perception, by its own training logic, okay, it is going to generate something. Okay, now there are many way of actually generation, like generating things. Okay, either I may get a response in a completely textual format, either I get a response in a multimodal format. When I say multimodal, then I may get a response with text as well as video as well as image. Okay, either I will get a response in simple visual format, in just a image, text to image format. So all these things, these model, they have trained it. Okay, you can see into the core concept, right? It has a mini text generation model, and it is basically the code. I will tell you the code when I like hop into the coding part. Just understand the code, like just understand the website. Okay, that like what it is. Okay, similarly some code generation thing. Okay, it has actually some model, some image and vision model, it has some audio and speech model, it has structured output function calling. We will going to cover everything. Okay, and when it comes to the pricing part, so these are actually pricing, of course, because these model needs a very big compute, right? So let's say me and you, right, we don't have such big GPU. Okay, we don't have such big compute. Okay, otherwise we can just download this model, okay, into our system and like run it into our available compute that we have, right? But we don't have such big compute because these are very big model trained on multiple billion parameters. Okay, and in order to process this thing, it needs big set of compute. Okay, so these model is actually running on the data center. Okay, where these data center are, so if I just look into the OpenAI data center location, let me add. Okay, so it has actually like present in some data center are actually in Texas. Okay, somewhere is actually New Mexico, and some other way, like some in Norway. So these are basically the available data center of the company OpenAI, where it contain a lot more data, it contain a lot more powerful GPU just to like run this model. Okay, and you may question that why they are actually charging us, because in order to get the response from the model has to process. Okay, and when model needs processing, it needs GPU. Okay, it needs a big compute. Okay, that is why they are actually charging us these many kind of input. Let's say that per input means what, the per number of token. Let's say the more question we have, let's say I have, let's say 1,000 question, or let's say a question of containing 1 lakh word. Okay, it means that it has a 1 lakh token. Okay, and in order to understand the 1 lakh token for a machine, it needs a good processing. Okay, because machine needs to understand the every logic part, the reasoning part. Machine needs to construct a good set of logic, so that it can basically going to give you a good response. Okay, so all this construction, okay, all this different psychology of let's say text, relating the semantic from let's say one text to another text, it is simply like human being. Okay, if let's say if you are a superhuman, okay, and if your let's say capacity is that if someone is going to feed you let's say 1,000 word per minute. Okay, and if you have that level of persona, okay, if you have that level of big brain, okay, if you have that level of personality, okay, then you may like try to give the answer in a minute, okay, in a second, right? Similarly, when it comes to machine, so it has a big set of GPUs, okay, which is like basically like attached, either running in a parallel manner or in a sequential manner, so that it can actually understand our own semantic word meaning. Okay, so that it can basically process it. Okay, and all this processing, in order to run this processing, of course power is needed. Okay, so that is why, and some other thing is actually needed, right? So that is why they are actually costing us these many input and output. Okay, so these are actually, so these people are actually costing us for like running these many types of model. Okay, because they're actually running it into the server, right? So they need a good power consumption. So that is why they are just providing these things into a form of API key. Okay, so that user can have an access to the API key. Okay, and user can basically like proceed to like run these models, okay, into your system. Okay, of course it needs an internet access. Okay, because it is not a on-prem model. So you may question that, suppose I want to like run any of these GPU model, right, into my system, and if I don't have internet, can I able to run that thing? The answer is yes, if your system is good persistent enough to download the very small open source GPU model. When I say open source, it means that publicly available. Okay, if that GPU model, you can actually like download it into your system, make your own server accessible, so that you can actually, you yourself can actually like that system is personalized enough to give you the good response. Okay, other than that, let's say that if you don't have such big compute, then you need to rely upon that connection. Okay, that connecting it to the server, okay, connecting it to the OpenAI server. For that you need to pay them. Okay, you need to pay some set of token. Okay, you need to charge your credit. Okay, so that is why so that is why you need to like recharge the account of OpenAI, so that you can actually like give a massive text of chunk or an image to, and then select the model whichever is conducive enough to give you a best set of response. Okay, in terms of generative, like in terms of generative AI tech. Okay, because anyway you want your response in terms of either in text or in vision or in let's say multimodal or in audio, in any format. Okay, you will going to get it. Okay, So that is the thing, okay, and these are basically the libraries. We will going to cover each and everything, okay, don't have to worry about these things. So we will cover the prompt engineering part, the background, but these are just a basic part that I wanted to tell you, okay. Now again, let's come back to the lecture, okay. So you have understood about the OpenAI, okay, you have understood about the OpenAI. Now you may ask that, okay, what is Hugging Face? Okay, what is basically Hugging Face? So Hugging Face is basically, it is a public repository for dataset. It is public repository for like containing a lot more open source model, okay, which is actually publicly available. When I say open source model, it is like publicly available, because OpenAI is not a very sole model, or OpenAI is not a only sole company who actually going to give access to their large language model or to their visual language model which they have like developed, okay. There are some other model as well developed by the different companies who are actually like favoring the people of this globe in a very free, like they don't charge anything, okay. So like where they are going to, like where as a person, where am I going to access all these model, okay, because all these different companies, right, has their own different set of model repository, okay. So Hugging Face is basically a common repository, just like a GitHub, okay. Hugging Face is what is basically a common repository, common repository, okay. Common repository for what? Common repository for dataset, okay. Common repository for different LLMs. When I say large language model or transformer based architecture, transformer based model, okay, or VLM, which means like vision language model, okay, or SLM, small language model, or different things, okay. So Hugging Face is basically a common repository or a centric repository where you can actually access to each and everything, okay. Now you may ask that Hugging Face, is it also a company? Yes, Hugging Face is also a company, okay, which is like signing an agreement with all those different companies who are actually providing or who has actually built this large language model completely free to use to the public, okay, to the people, okay. Now you may ask that, okay, then I have one question. Let's say that China has actually developed some large language model, right? So am I free enough to use that model? The answer is yes, you are completely free enough to use this model, okay, via a platform which is like the Hugging Face, okay. So if you go into the Hugging Face, you can actually like use the model which is like DeepSeek, okay. DeepSeek is actually developed by a Chinese company, right? So you can, like Alibaba, right? So Alibaba has actually developed its own large language model, which is Quen. Okay, to DeepSeek is actually developed by some other company. Okay, and all these companies has like signed an agreement with the common company, which is like Hugging Face, which is actually providing you the access to all this model. Now you may ask that, like, where this server are running? Are Hugging Face like actually have their own centric server where they are actually like taking all this model or rent and then running it in the Hugging Face server? The answer is probably, but it's not, okay, because most of these companies, let's say in Chinese company, they want their data to stable into their data center, which is present in the China, okay. Hugging Face is just signing an agreement so that they will just provide you as an intermediate API key to the user, so that user can actually access via Hugging Face to directly to this model, okay. So that you will be more, I would say, secure enough, okay, because you have an API key provided by some trusted source, which is like Hugging Face, okay. So if I go to the Hugging Face, you would going to understand this. If I just go and find Hugging Face, right? So inside this, see the AI community building for future, okay. If I inside this, you will see, again, don't worry about it, because I am going to cover, like, I will be covering each and entire thing, okay. So if you are actually like visiting the Hugging Face very first time, don't worry about it, you will going to learn each and every step, okay. So in the Hugging Face, in the model part, if you go, right, so in the model part, you will see that you will be having a so many generative AI model, okay. You will be having a text generation model, any to any model, image to text generation model, right. Then you will be having a text to image generation model, text to speech generation model, okay. Let's say that I want a text generation model, I can actually set up the parameter as well, that like whether I need a 32 billion parameter model, and then I can actually like short the most number of likes, okay. So you can see that Meta Llama is the model which has like 6.4 thousand people has actually like liked it, okay. And then around 2.8 million, 2.08 million people who have actually downloaded this model, okay. So you may ask that, can I actually download this model? Yes, because Hugging Face is a repository which has actually signed the agreement to all those companies who are actually providing their big large language model for free, so that if the user has a good compute, okay, they can actually download it into their system and run this model, okay, and take use of this model. So Hugging Face is actually providing this model as an API key, so that you can actually run this model into their server, or let's say a completely offline solution, so that you can actually download their entire model weight into your local system, and then you can actually use it by yourself. So all these things has been provided by a one intermediary epicenter of the large language data repository, I would say. Then that is basically you should actually go for, or let's say the good community, okay, the Hugging Hugging Face. Okay, so these are actually the model, and these are basically the data set. Okay, so other than Kaggle, where it contains a lot of data set, Hugging Face is also a very good source of, let's say, fetching the data set or uploading your own data set. Okay, and it will be completely secure. They will going to provide you the key. Okay, and each user will be having a personalized key, and it is completely personalized, so that each and everyone has their own set of data repository, and it can be shareable with the team as well. Okay, and these are basically Hugging Face space. Okay, so space is what? Space is like where you can actually take some GPU. Okay, as I already told you, right? So in OpenAI, so they are actually like giving you a large language model as an API key, so that you can actually use it into their OpenAI space or a GPU server. Okay, similarly, you can actually rent GPU space in the Hugging Face itself. Okay, so that you can actually like try to use all this model. If your system is not compatible, you can actually run this model into the Hugging Face space. Okay, again, very important thing. So let's say that you have a coin model. Okay, the coin service is basically in the China. You don't want your data to be present in China, so what you want, you will going to take one Hugging Face space. Okay, Hugging Face space means what? Hugging Face server. Okay, server space. Okay, which is actually present in, let's say, some United States. Okay, and let's say that you are much more comfortable of like saving your data into the United States server. Okay, so what you will do is that you're going to like take a Hugging Face space. Inside this space, you're going to import this Chinese model to run your entire model, not in the Chinese server, but in this space which you have actually taken it personally in the Hugging Face, so that all this model are, instead of running into their server, they will going to run it in Hugging Face space. Now you will get it, right? Similarly, if you go to the community, it has a big community, like it has a massive chunk of community. Okay, if I just going to find out Hugging Face data center locations, right? So it is like mostly in the European Union. Okay, all your data is actually like going, so you can actually like find out this data. Okay, that where is like Hugging Face is actually like storing the data. Okay, so Hugging Face is basically like, it is very common in generative AI. Whosoever, if you meet any of this generative AI engineer, right, so they will definitely going to name the Hugging Face, where like it contain lot more model. Okay, it contain an inferencing model as well, it contain different model. We will going to cover everything. Okay, for me, just my intention to show you about the Hugging Face. Okay, that what is Hugging Face, so you know about these things, right? Then let's come back to the Vertex AI. Okay, so similarly like Hugging Face, right? So Vertex AI is also, we will be covering it later, which is like developed by the Google. Okay, so Google has some kind of a model hub, okay, or a model garden, where you can actually save your data. Okay, where you can actually import a lot more data. Okay, so these companies are actually very trustable companies, which are actually like signed the agreement with other of these companies. Okay, other of big companies who have come up with their generative model. Okay, with their transformer based model. Okay, then after this video, right, so like after this completion, right, so we will be mostly, this is our main sweet spot. See, this is our main sweet spot. Okay, this is what you guys are here. Okay, this will going to make you a good generative AI engineer. So you are supposed to learn the LangChain. Okay, these are basically the framework. Don't worry, you will learn everything. Okay, so I will be covering about LangChain, the top use cases, what is chaining tool, memory prompt, LangSmith, the LangGraph tool, the Crew AI, and N10, each and every tech. Okay, so these are basically the ingredients to take use of this generative AI model. Okay, you will see in the internet that so many people are actually like using the generative AI. Okay, so these are basically the generative AI tech, I would say Gen AI tech. Okay, this, you come here, this you subscribe here to learn this tech. Okay, so this is basically the generative AI tech. Okay, and after understanding this generative AI tech, like once you have a good command in all these different tech, or different tool, or different attributes, or different ingredients, right, to, let's say, take use of these models. Again, I'm saying, okay, these are basically the LLM models. Okay, so in order to take use of this model, you need to understand about this different tech stack. Okay, so that you call yourself a generative AI engineer. Okay, and after that we will be covering about the RAG, which means like retrieval augmented generation. It's basically used in a chatbot system, so you can actually make your own chatbot as well for a company use cases or your own personalized data. Okay, and finally you are good to call yourself a good pro LLM engineer. Okay, so this is our entire roadmap, right? Now let's come to this part. Okay, again, there are top LLM model, as already told you. This is basically top. Okay, so this is like GPT-5 model. Okay, so before GPT-5, so GPT-3, right, GPT-3, GPT 3.5, GPT-4, GPT 4.5, these model has already been developed. When I say GPT means what, it has developed by the company called as OpenAI. Okay, and the number of parameter it has trained, it is basically undisclosed, but you can understand that it is a multi-trillion parameters. So many parameter. When I say so many parameter, it means so many weights, so many weight transfer, so many transform learning parameters, different weights. Okay, so you can actually like understand that these many parameters, this big chunk of large language model has been trained. Okay, and similarly ChatGPT, right, so ChatGPT has the, let's say, a best reasoning and logic capability. Okay, it can even going to solve a good set of maths Olympiad questions, so you can just understand that how good it is, right, in the market. Similarly, cloud, okay, so cloud is also a model, okay. When I say these are the model, okay, these are actually the model developed by different company. Again, I am telling, okay, all these things are actually doing the same thing, but these are the different large language model, or I should say the transformer based model, or I should say the generative AI model, in order to generate text, in order to generate code, in order to generate song, in order to generate image, in order to generate video. These are the models, okay, developed by different companies. So GPT is actually developed by the OpenAI, cloud is actually developed by the Anthropic, okay, Gemini is actually developed by the Google, the Grok is actually developed by the SpaceX, like the X, right, the founder Elon Musk, right. Then similarly, Llama is actually developed by the Meta, okay, the DeepSeek is actually developed by some Chinese company, right, and Coin is actually developed by the Alibaba, okay. So all these things, all this large language model has been developed by these big companies. Now you might be wondering that why these so big companies are generating these model, why, like, why we, like me and you, why are we not generating these models? Because it needs a good set of investment, okay. If you have a good set of investment, you can actually like set up your own server in your room, okay, so that you can actually download the weight and then try to fine tune your own model, try to make your own transformer model, try to train, because training does cost a lot more dollar, okay, and for like training you need a better investment. That is why you can see that these are the big companies are actually able to come up with different model, okay, by themselves, because they have a huge chunk of GPU system, okay. That is why. So let's say that DeepSeek model, so it has actually disclosed it, so it is around, let's say, 685 billion mod. So you can understand that 685 billion it will take a lot more GPU, right? That's why. Similarly, Coin 3, okay, it is like 235 billion GPU, okay. Of course it is not running in my Mac system, okay, it need a big chunk of compute, okay. So you have understood about this Hugging Face transformer, right? That what is Hugging Face? So Hugging Face is basically open source AI community tool, okay, which contain the agreement of all these big companies. They are actually providing you this different model with the API key, okay, so or even the open weight, okay, so that if you have a computer you can actually try to use it, okay. It has many different model, okay, and then sharing the model, fine tuning, inferencing, NLP, vision based model, you name it, you get all this model, okay. So in this way you are going to understand these things, okay. That is why any generative AI engineer is actually know about the Hugging Face, okay. And that is why like my agenda is to tell you, okay, that what is OpenAI, okay. OpenAI is a different company, Hugging Face is a different company. These big model has been developed by different companies, and these are the model is trained on different weights, okay, like occur to do different kind of a task, okay. This generative task, okay, of generating the image, generating the text, you know, all these things, right? Similarly, let's say when it comes to LLM graphs, so you know, right, different cloud, Grok 4, DeepSeek, so these are the models, okay. And again, what is Hugging Face? So again, I'll tell you that it is basically free for all. So yes, you are happy, right? So it is basically free, which means that inside this you will get a lot more different variety of model, okay. Similarly, the same thing, okay. So yeah, this is the, so from the transformer you can actually like try to import. So I will tell you each and everything, you just need to be little patient, right? So this is just a lecture 2, just to give you the glimpse of OpenAI, Hugging Face and other things, okay, which is actually needed. So let's go to the another set of lecture where I will tell you about these things, right? The LangChain, the framework, I will tell you about this framework from the very basic, okay. Thank you.